Welcome back to the No Gray Areas podcast. I'm your host, Pat McCullough, and joining us today is entrepreneur and author of 5 Year Millionaire, Jason Brown. Jason breaks down some of the biggest myths surrounding wealth and why achieving financial independence isn't just about grinding harder or working longer. Whether you're in your 20s just getting started or in your 50s wondering if it's too late to change direction, Jason shares practical strategies and a mindset shift that can help you start building real financial freedom. Let's jump in. Jason, thank you so much for joining us on the No Gray Areas podcast. So as our audience already heard, you're kind of a guru in the finance money area, and we're really excited because we talk a lot about the importance of choices. And one of the main places in our lives, everybody's life, every listener, is what they do with their money, how they invest in their money. So I want to start by asking you, what are some false narratives or false beliefs that you see that most people have around money?
Yeah, when I think about false narratives, you can just start with one of the most popular ones, is that money doesn't grow on trees. And technically, last time I checked, it was paper, and paper was made of trees. And the reason the reason I bring that up, though, but it goes into showing you how we're mostly raised, which is the false narrative of work hard, get a good job. Although there are quote unquote good jobs, money doesn't grow on trees. But the opposite is actually true. Money does grow on trees, and getting a good job necessarily or a good education doesn't necessarily mean you'll get ahead in life financially, because we know people who have a good job, whether that's in the NFL, NBA, could be an engineer, doctor, or lawyer, but they're still living check to check because they haven't been taught financial acumen or just how to budget, how to live below their means. And so those are some of the false narratives that you think just doing that alone, you're going to live a good financial life. But a lot of times you just end up broke at a higher level.
Yeah, broke at a higher level. I like that. So what do you think are some other false narratives or false beliefs? Because I would guess that you're working with people, and I know I've had to work through some of them. So I'm a person of faith. I grew up with a biblical worldview and going to church. And I don't think anybody meant to teach me this, but subtly, even though they would quote the verse, the love of money is the root of all evil, I somehow interpret that as money is the root of all evil, right? That's not what that verse is saying.
Exactly.
Money is neutral. It's not good or bad. It's you got $100 bill laying over there. It's like a rock laying over there. It's what you do with it. So what are some other false narratives that you think that people have that are affecting them negatively?
Yeah, it's funny you bring up church, because when I think about when I was going to church, I felt like the narrative was that poor people were for God and that rich people were not godly. So that was a false narrative that impacted me at a very young. It was like as if you made money, you were a bad person.
Yep, same.
And so I never really wanted to make money. It's like, or the other reverse would happen. People who made money was like, you don't want to be like them. What did they have to do to get there? Who did they have to step on? And then I started meeting wealthy people, and I'm like, they donate the most. They're some of the nicest people.
Some of the most generous people you'll meet.
Jobs and things like that. And so those narratives, I think, play out because in different circles, whether it's politics, whether it's the poor community, whether it's the middle class community, I think we say certain things to keep ourselves safe and to support a certain audience. And it might not necessarily be true, but the audience is going amen, and it keeps them coming and feeling good about themselves, even though the narrative might not be actually true.
Yeah. Well, I like, Jason, what you brought up there, because you talk about like families or cultural values. I would guess, well, no, I'm going to back up. I don't guess. I know every one of our listeners, every audience member, me included, because of the family you grew up, because of the culture you grew up, because you grew up in America or whatever country you grew up in, there's some kind of false belief or narrative that you're living out how you handle or leverage money that you've got to figure it out. You got to figure out where that's affecting you negatively. And you brought up a couple of them. Any others that you want to point out before we move on?
Yeah, I think just working hard is a false narrative. Now, it is an ingredient, but it's a false narrative, because I saw my mother work hard at 2 jobs and she never really got ahead financially, right? So just the thought that work hard, you'll be okay. There's so many. Do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. I do what I love, but when you start charging for it, it becomes work. You start worrying about numbers and sales. And you're like, I used to love it. Now it's all business. So, I mean, there's so many when you really dissect them that if you were to build your house on these cards, it would come tumbling down. So you really have to take some of these sayings with a grain of salt.
Yeah. Man, you are talking to me more than our audience, I think, because you keep hitting the ones that I grew up in a probably a upper lower class, maybe lower middle class family, but working hard, that was something that was really taught to us. And I do think it's important. I would encourage everybody in our audience, you should be
Absolutely.
a hard worker. But I had that false narrative that if I work really hard, you're going to get paid for it. And that's not true. What I found out in life is people usually pay you the least they possibly can to do the job, whether you work really hard or not. And so I got to the point in my 40s, I'm 54 now, but in my 40s, I got to the point where I realized even if I'm working for someone else, that it was my responsibility to go to them and make sure that I was earning what I deserve, because I know that they are only going to pay me the least they possibly can. And that's true whether you work in a church, a faith-based organization, a nonprofit, or in corporate America. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. And I think people have to understand it's not because they're bad people. It's also that's how that system is designed. And so once you understand that system is designed that way, you can stop being mad at your boss. You can stop being mad at, the leadership team, because, you run a business, I run a business, and we can't always just pay people the max. That's not how that system is designed. We have to be profitable. We want to pay you a fair wage for what you bring to the table, but we can't always pay you the max. And sometimes, obviously, if you're like, okay, I'll do it for this much, and I'm like, well, I would have paid this, it's just not good business and say, well, I would have paid extra 10 grand. So it doesn't make us bad people. But to your point, you have to be an advocate for yourself. Yeah. And you also can be working hard. I think about the garbage man. He works hard, but you got to understand that system, not just being a garbage man, but any W-2 system, it doesn't matter how hard you work. If you agree to salary, I call it the golden handcuffs. Once I realized, I thought, I got $100,000 salary. Then I realized, wait, it doesn't matter how much harder I work. I've already agreed to this amount. I won't get paid a penny more. Then I was like, can I go back to hourly? Because at least I could get overtime, time and a half, right? So once you start to understand that these are systems, you can be upset at the system, or you can be excited about playing in a different system versus being upset at your boss or your employer.
Yeah, man, well put. I wish I would have met you earlier in life. I could already tell talking to you. So let me ask you to define a couple of terms. Like you just said, golden handcuffs. Explain that a little bit more. I like that term.
Yeah, so they're golden handcuffs because it's gold, it's shiny, so it's that shiny object. You're like, yes, I want that salary. But then you're locked in. You can't do anything else. You can't make any more money aside of what you agreed for. So that's the handcuffs. Then what most people do is they build their lifestyle around that 100,000, and it makes it hard for them to leave as well. So it's the golden handcuffs. It's what everyone wants until they realize you're chained to that dollar amount, and it's very hard to increase your salary. For example, I was a regional sales manager for a major cable company. I was also a sales manager for Verizon Wireless. And what I realized when I went up to management, yes, I got a bigger salary, but the commission I could make was based off 10, 20 different employees. So some employees were killing it, making extra 5,000, 6,000. Some employees were making extra 500. For me, that meant the average commission check. So I never really made much more than the golden handcuff agreement. And then you're like, okay, maybe I'll move up even further. But all you're usually left with was more hours. And again, that golden handcuffs, you don't really make any much more pay.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you got to try to leverage it, get stock, if you can get stock options, different things like that. But that goes back again to that being financially astute to understand where does the money come from if it's not going to come from anything else from my salary because I've already agreed to this.
Yeah. Well, Jason, we're probably getting into the core of what you do and why you do it, right? Because then I would ask you, okay, golden handcuffs, you explain what that is, but that's the system that most everybody listening has been brought up and is currently working in. So what's the alternative?
You ever read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
Mm-hmm.
And so Robert Kiyosaki lays it out the best. He calls it the rat race. It's just being on that hamster wheel. That's what working a job is. It's about being on that hamster wheel. Now, I want to be very, very clear. Working a job is not a bad thing. I am talking about financial systems. So I want to be clear to people listening. Don't go to work tomorrow and feel bad that you work. No. I'm talking about when you look at it as a system, It is designed for you to put in hours of work. You get paid every 2 weeks. That's not bad. That is a system.
Yeah.
When we're talking about creating wealth, those people are saying, how do I get out of the hamster wheel of trading time for dollars? Or in my case with the golden handcuffs, didn't matter how many more time I put into it, I wouldn't get paid anymore.
Yeah.
And so you start looking at how can I get outside of that system? And you start to look at the two quadrants that Robert Kiyosaki talks about in Cash Flow Quadrant, which is the investor quadrant and the business quadrant, where you're leveraging either people or you're leveraging money to work for you. So you don't necessarily have to donate any more time to get paid. And that's where you start to see real wealth and real change.
So are people able to do that if they're still within that system?
Absolutely.
Because that's, I appreciate so much that you clarified that. You're not telling our audience, you need to go quit your job and find some.
Absolutely
So
not.
you're in that system. You're in that system, but in that system, you can do things that are allowing you to take the golden handcuffs off. That's the core of what you talk about, right?
Absolutely. And so when you're in that system, you just, number one is recognizing you're in that system.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't even recognize that they're in their system. So when you start to look at other systems, you think real estate, that is a system. You bought a property once. If you're renting it out, you get paid every single month. But how many times do you have to buy the property? Once. Does it have some ups and downs? People tear up the house, get it. But the system itself, you bought the house once, you get paid over and over again. You can't go to work once and get paid over and over again.
Yeah.
So
I tried that. It doesn't work. You're right.
So you look at that as a system.
Yeah.
Now, in the stock market, which is a system I like, I don't even have to build a business. I can put money with someone else who's better at building the system, and I can go along for the ride and the appreciation. That is a system. I typically can't go to work and say, John, I'm investing you today. However well you do, let's split that, right? That doesn't work in that system.
Yeah.
So I want people to just be aware of the systems that they're in. And you can be at work, and then you could be in the investment system by just contributing to your 401k.
Yeah.
You could be in an investment system by just taking advantage of employee stock purchase plans. So you can be in multiple systems at once. And then the goal for everyone, no matter who you are, is to eventually get out of this system and have this system take care of you. Meaning, even if it's just I worked here 40 years and now I can retire because I built up my investment account. But that's the long-term goal, to get out of that system and have your retirement, your pension, your investments take care of you.
Yeah.
My thought is, how do I speed that up? That's just how I look at life. Like, okay, they do it at 65. Can I get it done at 40?
Yeah.
Can I get it done at 45?
I like that. Another term that's thrown around a lot, financial independence. How would you describe that or define that?
So financial independence, I look at that as the ability to make money regardless of anything that's going on in the economy and regardless of a boss or anything like that. So if you're financially independent, you have money that comes in regardless if inflation's up, down, regardless of who's in the office. That's financially independent to me. If you are only doing well if Democrats are in there, but not when Republicans, you're not financially independent because you got a 4-year stretch before it's over again, right? Or potentially 8-year max. If you are dependent on your boss or another employer, you're not financially independent. If you have to depend on your own efforts, you're not financially independent. So a lot of times it could be questionable if I'm financially independent because I'm the one still trading and investing in the stocks. If I get hit by a bus, I don't know why we always use that analogy, but
there's some bad bus drivers out there apparently.
Right. Yeah. But the fact is, my family doesn't know how to trade and invest stocks like I do. So it's possible my income could go down, right? But then there's a portion of it that's like, as long as it's in the S&P 500, it makes on average 11% a year. So if you got $1 million in there, I could pull out $100,000 minimum a year and I'd be okay. So there are elements of financially independent, but unless you truly have a business and a system that runs itself, employee, CEO in place, a lot of people aren't truly financially independent. It's a cool term.
Yeah, and the way you define the term, I guess, would it be true that we could say it's part of what a goal that you should be working toward? You may not get there till late in life. You may not completely get there, but it's not either you're there or you're not there. It could be that you've taken more steps to get there, and that's the right direction.
Yeah, I think it's a combination. When I think about wealth and financial independence, all these terms that get thrown around, I think of it as having time, money, and health together, never having to decide which one is more important. If you have those three, like, it doesn't matter if you're financially independent if you don't have your health, right?
True.
It doesn't matter if you are financially independent, you have your health, but you have no time to enjoy it. And so it's really a combination of things put together that creates wealth And financially independence is just one of the components that says I have income coming in and I don't have to wake up and worry every day. Because you could become financially independent a couple of different ways. You don't have to become wealthy. The guy living on the streets financially independent. He gets his government check every single month, or SSI, Social Security, doesn't have a mortgage, sleeps in a shelter. Technically, he's financially independent. I'm financially independent. I get a check every month. I'm good.
I never thought about that. Yeah.
Right? And so that in itself isn't just the ultimate goal, because you can get there by making money. You can get there by just living a simple life as well.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest mistakes that people typically make when it comes to how they leverage their money or invest their money?
Hey, we hope you've enjoyed this episode so far. Be sure to like and subscribe to not miss a future podcast. Okay, let's get back to the episode.
I think the typical mistake is not getting started. That's probably the first step of a typical mistake, just not getting started. Whether it's, I don't know where to start, it's too complicated, I heard it was hard, somebody did something similar and lost money. That's probably the first mistake, is just not even getting started. And when I say getting started, people don't even take the step to enroll in their 401k. The company's matching 3%. If you put in 3%, that's a free 3% after your vesting period. Most people won't even take that. So that's a simple way to get started. Another thing that most people don't do is get education. I was just talking about this. I did like a New Year, New You live stream. And education, we will go to school to be a doctor. We'll go to school to be a lawyer. We'll go to school to be an engineer. If we go see a doctor, lawyer, or engineer, we want to know that they go to school. Are they licensed? Are they certified? When it comes to finances, we're like, I got this. Never done it before, but I got it.
I'll figure it out.
Never opened a trading account, never evaluated a company, never read a stock chart, but I got it. I'm going to watch some videos, right? And so, but we have this stigma around paying for education in one of the biggest wealth creation industries, which is the stock market or real estate, right? I know sometimes people joke like, oh, here come another real estate class about how to buy and flip. But if you've never bought a house, you've never been through an inspection, you don't know what to look for, why wouldn't you get educated before you commit to such a big endeavor that really could financially crush you if you do it wrong?
Jason, I don't know if you noticed, but when you started talking about education, I sat up, I moved around a little bit because you got me on my soapbox. Like, this is a big issue to me. I just don't understand, and I hope that it will start shifting, but I don't understand why we don't spend more time in our general education system. I mean, like elementary, junior high, and high school, that everybody pretty much goes to. Teaching some of these things. I learned about parallelograms, and I've never used any of that information. But what I didn't get is a deeper training on compound interest and investing and real estate and some of the things that you're talking about. And so when you talk about education, I'm like, I hope this starts to shift. I hope we start moving toward people coming out of high school and learning some of these, just because not everybody's going to have to know about a parallelogram. Very few are going to have to know about that. It's not going to help most people in life.
Or the periodic
table. Everybody's going to have to do, or the periodic table. But everybody is leveraging money for good or bad.
Yeah, when you think about school, I think back to the agrarian age. School was really, if you think about school, how it's been built, it was really designed for people to go work. That's it. And so how can I get the masses amount of people to understand the basics to be able to contribute to the society or the economy? It was never designed to say, how do we help people get wealthy? It was actually never even designed to teach you life skills. It was only to teach you how to farm, how to ranch, how to do manual labor for the most part.
Yeah, work in a factory.
Yeah. And so when you look at what school is about, it's not about life skills. I would argue college would teach you more about life skills than it actually teaches you about, books and stuff, how to study, how to be independent. Nobody's forcing you to go to class. Do you stay up and party and drink and drop out of school, or do you take advantage of the scholarship that you have? That's probably the closest you get to actually starting to learn some of the life skills that they should have taught you perhaps in high school. But there's how it works and there's how it should work. Or should I say there's how it should works and how it works. And, it's tough. It's tough. They got so many students. They got to kind of level the playing field and keep everybody at the same pace.
Yeah.
It's a tough racket. But I think that's where alternative forms of education come in. I think more people need to be open to alternative education. Like I'm always paying for seminars, courses, programs, masterminds. And before that would have been foreign to me. But now, I mean, I'll cut a $30,000 check. I've been part of $30,000 masterminds. I've bought $10,000 coaching program. I said, if I'm gonna sell a $30,000 program, I gotta know what it's like to buy one. And so even just the process of buying it, even if they didn't deliver anything, I know what a bad $30,000 program looks like. That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
And so I'm always willing to spend money to get knowledge and information, but I know everybody else isn't brought up like that.
Yeah, great point. So imagine that you're teaching a class, our audience listening, I'm talking now to our audiences maybe in their 20s and 30s. So you have a room full of people in their 20s and 30s. What are some things that you would tell them about how they leverage this point in their life for investing and finances? My next question is, I'm going to fill that room, taking the 20s and 30s out, and I'm going to put 40s, 50s, 60s in there. So first talk to the younger people, because I think you're probably going to, like for me, compound interest isn't going to work as well for me anymore just because of the age I'm at. But if I was in my 20s, that's where I'm kind of getting at.
It might. In my book, 5 Year Millionaire, I talk about that.
Okay. Well, see, I'm opening the door for you get to say that. So you have your 20s and 30s in the room. What are you going to tell them about some key principles and worldviews on how to leverage the finances that they have?
So a few things come up being in the 20s and 30s. Number one, if you're in college or not, the lifestyle that you have at the 20s and 30s, you're used to eating ramen noodles, right? You're used to going home to mom's and getting a good dinner. You're used to driving an okay car. Doesn't have to be a Benz, a Bentley, a Ferrari, stuff you see on Instagram. The key at that age is to basically what I'm getting at is live below your means and invest the difference. Like getting wealthy, you don't even have to get wealthy because that term even scares some people. Some people say, I don't want to be wealthy, I just want to be comfortable. Well, in order to be comfortable, it's not that hard. If you make $3,000, that's $36,000 a year before tax is taken out. If you live off $25,000, you got $7,000 to $10,000 every single year that you could do something with. Now, let's not go too far to a year because that's the way I looked at it when I was coming up. Was like, that's an extra $1,000 a month that I can invest in the stock market. And if I lose it, my lifestyle doesn't change. And so I wasn't as fearful about investing in the stock market. I knew next month I get extra $1,000 as long as I kept my lifestyle below my hourly wage. And so if I'm in my 20s, my 30s, if I can keep my lifestyle below my hourly wage, you can now take a calculated risk. And if it doesn't work out, nothing changes.
Man, I love what you're saying there. I had some friends that I went to school with them. Their dad was a dentist, and then all the kids ended up becoming doctors or dentists. But one of the things he talked to them about was exactly what you're saying, is he said, listen, when you get out of school, if you will continue to live, so now you're a doctor, you're a dentist, you're an orthodontist, if you'll continue to live for the next few years the way you did in school, within 3 to 5 years, you're going to be in a completely different place because now you're making a lot more money, but instead of just raising your lifestyle, and I'm using a term you use, raising your lifestyle to that income range, keep your lifestyle down here and start figuring out how to invest. But I think the problem for a lot of 20s and 30s, and you weren't there, obviously, because you were doing this. So I want to ask you, what made you do this? I don't think a lot of people in their 20s and 30s are thinking of investing because they're not going to see the compound impact of that yet. It's going to take a lot of years to see that. What got you to recognize the value of compound interest or investing and waiting long term? And I'll put long term in quotes.
I think the best thing that happened to me was growing up in the neighborhood and the lifestyle that we did. I do a talk called Your Unfair Advantage can become your disadvantage can become your unfair advantage. And that's what happened to me in life. My dad passed when I was 2, so we didn't have a father. Not because he left, he just car accident and passed away. My mom worked for, I think, Blue Cross Blue Shield, so she worked in the medical field. Then she worked a part-time job at Target. We lived in a neighborhood where there was drugs, gangs, dope in the neighborhood. And so what happened for me was, at an early age, I was always asking, how do we get out of here? How do we get out of here? So for me, I wasn't like, oh, that's too far. I'm like, what can I do today so that tomorrow is better? I don't care if tomorrow is 5 years, 10 years. I need it to be different than what it is today. And so that was my advantage of wanting to figure out how to get this done early. And specifically, when I was working for Sprint PCS, I made $8 an hour at Sprint PCS. So I made $64 on a Saturday. When we took taxes out, I took home $50. I had been working part-time jobs since I was 14, back when you could work at 14. I think the minimum age may be 16 now. But I worked at Mervyn's of California. I worked at Best Buy. I worked at Sprint. I worked at McDonald's, Caesarland, you name it. Since I was 14, I started working. So by the time I was 18, all the way through high school, I had missed you name it on the weekends, I missed it because I always worked the weekends. I always worked a retail job. And so I remember when I worked for Sprint, I was like, if I could just make $50, I could take a Saturday off. Because if I didn't work Saturday, it would affect my lifestyle. And my first investment was $2,000. I took my high school graduation money and I went to a well-known bank and said, I want to invest. The lady was like, why? I was like, I want to be rich. Why else do people do this? 2 years later, they lost majority of my money. I came back, it was only $700 in there. I asked her, what happened? She like, I don't know what to tell you. I was like, I know what to tell you. Give me my $700 back. I'm going to do this myself. And so I spent $200 on some Jordans because I was like, if I lose this $500, at least I got some gym shoes to show for it. Right?
You got a hard asset. Yeah.
I got a hard asset, right? I got something to show for it. But that $500, I said, if I can make 10%, just $50, I could take a Saturday off for Sprint. Luckily, at that time, Sprint stock was $5 a share. And so I bought 100 shares and I'm like, I just needed to move 10 cents. I needed to move 50 cents. I didn't need a big, 100-point moves, just 50 cents, or a dollar, 50 cents to a dollar, and I can make that $50. And I bought it at 5. The stock fell down to 4. I was like, shit, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then it went back up to 5, and I was like, I just need to go to 550. And it fell back down to 4. I was like, the stock market's rigged. I knew it doesn't work for people like me.
Is this happening over a matter of weeks or months?
Weeks.
Or
So
okay.
every week it would go maybe down
okay.
$1, then next week up $1.
Yep.
So this is happening all in 1 month. And so I'm just up and down. And then it went back up to 5, and I said, I've seen this before. I got out at 5, it broke even, and went down to 4. I got in and went back up to 5. I got out, I made my first $100. What I'm trying to share with you, based on your original question, why was I so into this at an early age? I would hear people say, if you took $2,000 and just put it away in Google or this and that, you would have been a millionaire in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. I thought, why don't everybody do that? So that's why at 18, I took my first $2,000 to the bank. I said, I'm going to do what everybody else doesn't do. I was willing to wait 30 years. I said, okay, well, by 50, I'll be a millionaire. 50 is going to come anyway. I'm going to need some money by then. That's why I did it. When they lost majority of my money and I did it myself with the 500, when it went back up and I made my first $100, I said, well, what if I had $5,000? I wouldn't have made 100. I would have made 1,000. And back then I was like, I would have been rich with $1,000.
Yep.
20 years old, 1,000 that I made not working. Then I was like, what if I had $10,000? Right? And I was like, what if I had 100,000? Because I realized the game was the same. It was just how much money do you have playing it?
Yeah.
And so I just was like, the question I started asking myself every day was, how do I get more money into the machine? That was the question I asked every day. So I became the top sales phone rep at Sprint because the more commission I made, the more I could put into the machine.
But Jason, you're a fascinating individual because I'm hearing your story. First of all, audience, I hope you didn't miss it, because sometimes when people sit and listen to someone like you who's kind of a financial guru, but you came really from nothing or very little, and you had to figure this all out. But what I think is so fascinating about you is you start figuring out how to invest, but the first time you go into that, it's a failure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which, again, most young people, if you can convince them to invest and you tell them all the things you just told us in the audience, you might get them to try it. But if it fails the first time, they're like, I'm out. But you didn't. You actually said, all right, it didn't work for them doing it. Now I'll try it. Is that your personality, or did someone teach you that?
I think it's mindset. It's mindset. I used to be in network marketing, so we used to read a lot of books on mindset and personal development.
Yeah.
And that was probably one of the best things I ever did. I know people don't like multi-level marketing, or some of them are pyramid schemes. Some of them legit, like Mary Kay and Tupperware.
Mm-hmm.
But that was one of the best things I did at an early age, was get in network marketing. Because again, I was always trying to figure out, how do we change our financial situation? That's the first time I heard about residual income. So I thought, okay, how do we get residual income at our level? I can't open a McDonald's. I don't have enough for real estate. It was network marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So my mindset at an early age, once you understand the system and numbers, you don't take it personal. And so at work, that system, if you work and don't get paid, you upset, because that's that system. I put in work, in 2 weeks, I better get that check.
Yeah.
In this system over here in the stock market, you could invest, you could be wrong once, 2, 3 times, but that fourth one might be the one that take off. So once you understand that system, it's not a system of being right 100% of the time. I would never tell people, come join my program. Of course, I'm right 100% of the time. That's not the system.
Yeah.
The system is to be right more than you're wrong. And when you're wrong, be wrong small and be right big. Once you understand that, you're going to miss a couple shots. And
what you just said right there is worth this whole podcast, man. That's golden. So, okay, so you got this room full of 20s and 30s. You're telling them lifestyle. That's the important thing. You don't every time you get a little bump in raise or you're making a little bit more, don't just raise your lifestyle up. This is the time in your life to try to keep your lifestyle down here and take some of that money and start investing it.
And I want to say it's human nature to want a little bit better than what you have. Mm-hmm. I'm saying, do you have to go all the way up to what I call financial red line? You mean you make this much, you spend this much. That's financial red line. So if you're starting down here and now you're making this, it's okay to kind of come up to here.
Yeah.
But where's the margin so you can take some calculated risks? That's what I'm really telling people.
Yeah. Is there something, and again, I keep pressing on this because I used to be a teacher and a coach. I've worked with young people for a long time. I was a young person. And, really, I wish I would have learned some of these principles at a younger age, because I know that a lot of those 20, and you recognize this too, a lot of those 20s, 30-year-olds sitting in that room are going to nod their head and agree with you and go, that sounds good. And then they're going to go home and they're not going to do it. There's a lot of them that aren't going to do it. So what is it that you see that differentiates the 20 or 30-year-olds that are actually doing that versus those that aren't?
Desire. That's the number one word, desire. You have to, I was hungry and I desired to change my situation, my family situation. I was tired of being broke. We were in credit card debt. I mean, we didn't talk about this, but we grew up sleeping in sleeping bags. We didn't have beds until we were 10 to 12. I thought you didn't get a bed until you were grown up because they had to go to work the next day. So a lot of it is desire. If you don't desire to change your situation, if you don't desire for a better life financially or for what the money could do for your church's charity community, if you don't have a desire for anything, you're not going to put in the effort. And so the reality is everybody won't be a winner, and that's okay. If the pandemic has taught us anything, we need the poor, the middle class, and the upper class.
Yes.
Because we saw what happened when everybody was rich, meaning everybody got a stimulus check, nobody had to go to work, nobody wanted to cut the grass, nobody wanted to pick up the garbage.
Yep.
Nobody wanted to be a waitress or a waiter. So if the pandemic has taught us anything, we need the poor, the middle class, and we need the rich. And we just got to understand everybody won't do what it takes to be rich. Everybody won't do what it takes to get out of debt. Everybody won't do what it takes to have a good retirement. And that's okay because we need everybody to keep this system running. But I'm talking to the ones who do desire to have a different lifestyle, different retirement. They want to drive the Ferrari now and not when they can barely step out of the car. There are some things that you can tweak and do now so that you can live like no one else later. And when I say that, I just turned 44 in November. Later wasn't that long. I think we think okay, I'm investing from when I'm 70. I had made my first $1 million, I think I was 39 or 38. So I had a goal to make $1 million before I was 40.
Yeah.
And so I've had the Ferrari. I have a Rolls Royce. We have the house on the lake. And it's not, I'm enjoying it now. It didn't take as long as I thought because when we talked about initially, compounding interest, leverage, that stuff starts to grow pretty quick. I did one investment with $200,000 and I made $400,000. So I pulled $600,000 out. I did a video on my YouTube channel about how I paid off our house. We have a house on the lake in Michigan. I took that money and paid off the house. What's powerful about that is if I was like my friends, which a lot of my friends, we all bought houses or our second, was that a third or second house around that time? They all are still paying on their, they got 26 years left on their mortgage yet. I bought 26, 27 years of my life back by leveraging the stock market. Now I could have said, nope, I'm not going to invest that. If I'm lucky enough to have $200,000, I'm just going to put it on the house and start paying it down little by little. But knowing what I know, I'm like, no, this can make more in the stock market. And once it makes more, then I take that, pay that off. And then I still got the 200 that I leveraged to make it. And so that's the vision that I saw.
And that education, your education came from going and reading other books or finding these online courses, or because, again, what you just described there isn't taught in school. So you went out and you figured that out on your own, but that goes back to just your desire to get out of the situation you were in.
Yeah, my desire led me down a path of searching for answers. How does this work? How do the other people do it?
Yeah.
How do the people who live over there do it, right?
Yeah.
And I started listening. reading. And then also trial and error. I went to the bank. I did what I thought you do. They lost most of my money. I did it myself. I lost $100 the first time because the stock dropped. So it wasn't just like, I'm going to do this and like off to the races, I'm rich. In my book, I talk about, I don't know if you know this, but when I had started making that money off the $500 and I was like, how do I get more money in a machine? I had a scholarship to the Mike Gillett School of Business, Wayne State University in Detroit. But I also applied for financial aid because I knew they would double pay and I would get the refund. So my scholarship was books and tuition, but not room and board. So when I applied for financial aid, the lady was like, well, you could use it for room and board if you want to live on campus. Like, well, what if I just stay home? She's like, well, you get a refund check and you can do whatever you want with it, but you can use it to just go to school. I was like, so I can do whatever I want with it? She's like, pretty much. So I took that $10,000, I actually put it in the stock market. That's how I got my initial 10 grand. Because I started with 500 and I was like, how do I get more money in the machine? I grew that to $113,000 by the time I was 21, 22. I dropped out of school. I run the account up to $300,000. I risk $250,000 trying to make $500,000 because I was going to buy a condo downtown Royal Oak, Michigan. I lose it all. So by the time I'm 25, 26, I'm flat broke, lost $250,000, most money I've ever lost in my life at that time. And I was just like, it's over. And then I said, no, it's not over. If I got this account up to $300,000, I know it works. I just have to figure out what I did wrong. So I actually started teaching local seminars around Metro Detroit about what I did wrong. So when people have a failure, they think, what are people going to learn from you? Like, you can learn from people who were successful, but you can also learn what not to do.
That goes back to your talk, your disadvantage can become your unfair advantage, right?
Well, that's exactly what happened. So I started doing these little seminars around Metro Detroit, and then we had a snowstorm, kind of like the one that's going on right now, and we had to cancel the seminar. And I was like, why are we driving and bringing a projector? I was like, why don't we teach it online? That's actually literally how I started my YouTube channel and started teaching, and then end up building a whole online university because I was documenting myself making the money back. So I'm saying this trial and error of trying to consistently figure it out and asking myself, I call it the hero's journey in my book. When you down and out and you don't believe in yourself, ask what your hero would do. My hero from an investment standpoint is Warren Buffett. And I said, has Warren Buffett ever lost $100,000 or $200,000?
Of course he has.
Of course. I'm saying, but if he quits, he never becomes Warren Buffett.
We don't know who he is. We don't know his name.
Right?
Yep.
He keeps going, he becomes the Oracle of Omaha. He becomes the billionaire. But on his way to $1 billion, I'm sure he lost his first 100,000, 200. So I had to borrow Warren Buffett energy and say, what would Warren do? He would figure out what he did wrong and he'd get back up on that horse. And that's what I did.
Yeah. So the talk that you're talking about where you talked about the disadvantage becomes your unfair advantage, is that on your YouTube channel? Because I want to go listen to that.
No, it's actually a keynote that I do. So
so I can't go watch that anymore. I got to come to one of your seminars. Because
when people hire me to come talk at, colleges, schools, to their corporations, it's a signature talk I give.
Well, and you should, because I'm just hearing your story. Like I love stories. This is why I love doing podcasts. I love stories. Everybody has a fascinating story. But when I'm sitting here listening to you, I didn't know some of your background, Jason. And then as I'm listening to it, I'm going, I'm still kind of in awe of the mindset that you developed in your 20s. And I say you developed because, again, this podcast is about we make our choices and eventually our choices make us. You weren't taught this. You grew up in a family that was living check to check. You grew up in a family where you're sleeping in a sleeping bag until you're 10 or 11 on the floor. So this wasn't just something you grew up hearing. And like we said before, you didn't get this in high school either. This isn't stuff that's taught in high school. You were in some ways self-taught. You had a desire. And as you've shared, you had some massive failures early on. And yet, here you are still doing this and figuring it out. So
here's what's funny. You just said I had massive failures early on. People, when I tell that story about how I had $200,000 in that trade and made $400,000, some people like, I would have a heart attack risking $200,000. Well, this is where my disadvantage became my unfair advantage. Because I had lost that $250,000 when I was 25, 26, risking $250,000 was nothing to me the second time around. So it became my unfair advantage. Had I not lost that money before, not know what it feels like to get knocked down and get back up, and then I realized, oh, life's not over. It's just $250,000. I'll go get a job. I'll live below my means again. I'll get back in the game. So now risking $250,000 was nothing to me that second time around. And so these mistakes are what build you. These choices of what you do after the mistake, if you will, or life experience. I call it life experience because It wasn't a mistake. I was investing.
Yeah,
That's part of the game.
exactly,
You know,
exactly.
you could lose
Yeah.
money. I didn't have to invest the whole $250,000. I could invest 50,000. I chose to go all in with the $250,000.
Yeah.
And so it's what you do after you make the decision. It's not necessarily a
Yep.
mistake. Don't label it a mistake because it didn't work out.
Yep.
But if it worked out, it was the best decision you ever made. No. You made a decision. Sometimes the chips fall in your favor. Sometimes they don't. I call it a calculated risk.
I'm so glad you defined that better because I take back what I said. You're right. It wasn't a massive mistake. You made a decision, it didn't work out. It's just like coaching world. It drives me crazy in the sports world nowadays, where this is why I'm secret. This, I don't know when this podcast is going to drop, but when we're filming it today, just last night, the Seahawks played and they won. And I was actually cheering for them because Sam Darnold played for Minnesota, had an amazing year, had a great record, has one bad game in the playoffs, and they get rid of him. So I'm kind of glad he's on another team now and he's going to be in the Super Bowl because I hate how in the sporting world, they almost expect constant up and to the right success. And that's not the way the world works anywhere, including how we leverage our money.
Absolutely.
Right? So I really appreciate how you kind of backed up and said, I don't consider that a mistake I made. I made a decision, didn't work out. What do I learn from it? That goes back to that mindset, right?
Yeah.
And I don't care whether we're talking, like right now we're mainly talking about money, but that is applicable in a relationship with your
industries.
spouse, with your kids, learning a sport, whatever. So, man, I really appreciate that. And I'm fascinated by your mindset again.
Sometimes I'm fascinated by it too. I'm like, did I say that? That's me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, okay, now you're stepping out of the classroom with the 20s and 30s where you talked about lifestyle and really figuring out how to invest in those years, such an important thing. And sometimes those investments are going to work and sometimes they're not. Just make sure that the ones that don't work out are smaller than the ones that do work out as much as you can. Now step in the room with people in their late 40s, 50s, 60s, where for most of us, you know, where I'm sitting in life, I'm going, man, well, let me back up and just say the only thing I learned in school about compound interest, I don't remember if you, or don't know if you learned this, was in one of my math classes, it was in junior high actually, did the whole thing where if you put a penny on a checkerboard and then you double it, each square.
Oh, yeah. The penny a day that doubles for 30 days is 5.3 million.
Yeah.
At the end of 30 days.
Once you start doing that, you start learning, you know, so 1 penny goes to 2 pennies, goes to 4 pennies, to 8 pennies, to 16 pennies, to 32 pennies. And, you know, the first line or two on that checkerboard that you're doing that, not much is happening. But then that's the compound interest.
Absolutely.
So sometimes when people get in their late 40s, 50s, 60s, they feel like it's too late now. I can't make that effectively work. You corrected me earlier when I said that. So now the room is full of 40s, 50s, 60s. What are you talking to them about the principles of leveraging their finances?
Yeah. So just like that penny example, typically people say, would you rather have $1 million or a penny a day that doubles for 30 days, right? Most people incorrectly take the $1 million, but the penny a day that doubles, it comes out to be $5.3 million after 30 days. The principle that whether you're 30 or 40s, 50s, 60s is that it's not too late. That's the principle that people should take away from it. It's not too late. And if you get started, the power of compounding interest can catch up quick. So in my book, 5 Year Millionaire, I started with $500. When I was just trying to make that 10%, I actually extrapolated it out over 5 years, and I would have had like $100,000 at the end of 5 years, just starting with $500 if I can make 10% a month. I looked at that and I said, well, most kids come into college, they go 50 to 100,000 in debt and they hope to come out making 100,000. I'm like, oh, this is a way I can come out and I'll have 100,000. Then I said, well, what if I can get it up to $4,000 in the account? Like if I could save my tax return, sell some stuff on eBay, just come up with, you know, $4,000 total. And when I did the math on it, if you start with $4,000, which is where 5 Year Millionaire came from, it's based on my personal story. If you start with $4,000 and you can earn 10% a month over 60 months or 60 trades, I like to say, or one trade a month, averaging 10%, you would have $1.2 million at the end of 5 years. And so you could start at 40 and be a millionaire by 45. You could start at 50 and be a millionaire by 55. And then I like to tell people, what happens if it takes twice as long? Okay, you can start at 50 and have an extra $1 million, 1.2 by the time you're 60, if you slow down and become conservative in doing it. So the only question becomes, how do I do it? It's a mathematical equation. It's 10% a month, once a month, or 60 trades, you'll have 1.2 million starting with $4,000. The next question is, how do I do it?
That's where I was going to go, because I can just hear a lot of people in our audience right now going, man, love it, Jason. Clearly you were someone that was going to figure that out. I don't have time. You know, I'm a single mom. I got 3 kids. I'm working a job. I'm running around. The kids to all their sporting events. I don't have time to sit down and figure out where I should invest. So how do I do? I do like the idea, but how do I do it?
As we're wrapping up this episode, be sure to leave us a 5-star review. And if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment on something you'll take away. All right, let's hop back into the remainder of the episode.
So there's 2 different tracks. One is how do I do it and how do I get help doing it? Those are 2 different questions, right?
Okay.
How do you do it? We use options, call options to control stock versus owning stock. That's where we get a 10, 20, 30x return on our investments. And I want to just explain what a call option is because people will hear that and then it goes over their head. So
Just wrote it down to ask you when you were done talking, so you're ahead of me.
So most people have bought a house before. So the way I explain it is, let's say you have a $200,000 house. You see the house, you're like, hey, I like it, I want to buy it. They say, great, give me an earnest money deposit. So you put $2,000 down. They say, okay, that'll hold the house for 30 days so you can get an appraisal and inspection. So that $2,000 down, first step is controlling a $200,000 asset. You didn't have to come up with $200,000 yet. You just put $2,000 down.
So you got control of it.
You got control of it for 30 days for a fraction of the cost. Now that house comes back after appraisal and inspection and says, hey, it's worth $250,000, or in real estate terms, it has $50,000 in equity in it, right? So now the house is worth $250,000. You have it under contract for $200,000. Say a person comes to the open house like, oh, I really love this house, but I heard it's under contract. You're like, well, I'm actually the one that's holding the contract. I don't have to move into this house. So I tell you what, it appraised for $250,000. I have it under contract for $200,000. You can buy my contract for $50,000, and then that will allow you to buy the house for $200,000. So you're all in $250,000. They're like, it appraised for $250,000. That sounds good. I give you $50,000 for the contract. I pay him $200,000 for the house. I'm all in $250,000. But think about what just happened for you. You controlled a $200,000 asset for $2,000. Because it appreciated in value in 30 days, you sold that contract for $2,000 to this person for $50,000. You made $48,000, never having to come up with $200,000 for the original asset.
Dude, you just explained that better than anybody has ever explained that to me. That was so clear. That was right on, man. That was so good because I've heard people talk about call options, dug into a little bit. My son was doing a little bit with it with the guy I know, but I get it now. It makes total sense.
So you can control Apple, Google, Tesla for a fraction of the cost for 30 days, 60 days, a year.
Yeah.
And as long as it appreciates in that time frame, you can sell that contract, never actually owning the original stock. So that is how we get that 10% return by using stock options to control higher price stocks and getting an exponential return.
So someone that doesn't know what they're doing, if they wanted to start doing that, what would they do?
So that's the other side of it. That's why I have a business and a job, because some people are like, I work, I don't have time to look for it. So that's what we do. We find the trades. Well, I'm looking for them for myself, first of all, but I find the trades. I do the write-up. I do the analysis on it. I find the option. I talk about the I'm wrong level, which is if it goes against you, where are we going to get out and cut our loss and keep it small? We do all that research. We do video analysis, written analysis, and then we send it out to our members. And then we also do live sessions so you can come on and ask questions about it. But I saw that gap in the marketplace because I needed that information. And I saw, why isn't anybody talking about it? Now, I mean, there's a bunch of people talking about it, but they don't explain it like I wish someone would explain it to me. And I think that's why our company and my teachings resonate with people. They're like, I've heard a million people talk about it, but it wasn't until I heard you explain it that I got it. I'm like, because that's how I wish somebody explained it to me when I was coming up. They used all this jargon, these big talks, and I'm like, why didn't they just explain it like a house or something like that? And once I heard it, once I correlated it to that, I'm like, that's how I'm explaining it. So regular people can understand it.
Yeah. Anything else you would say to that group of 40s, 50s, 60-year-olds in that room? I mean, one of the things you're saying, which is really important, is it's not too late. It's not too late. You can do it. In fact, your book is about, how you do that in 5 years. Anything else you would tell them?
I would tell them at, the 40s and 50 age, it's really important to get your family, if you have a family, assuming you have a family, it's really important to get them on the same page. Because at this age, you're probably not making this decision by yourself. You got to get the kids on board and the family on board. And what do I mean by that? I tell people all the time, they say, I love what you're doing. I'd love to do it, but we just don't have the money. I said, well, if you know anything about me, I don't buy Christmas gifts. It goes all the way back to when I was 18, when I saw my mother buy Christmas gifts. She spent 6 months being in debt, paying it off. And then Christmas was right around the corner. We started the process all over again. I thought that was just crazy that we were in debt half the year, and then we was going to start over all over again in like 6 months. So from a young age, I decided I'm not buying Christmas gifts. Plus, it didn't make sense to me. If I'm dating a girl, it's like, you spend $200 on me, I spend $200 on you. Why don't I just spend $200 on myself and we call it even? Like, it just, the whole thing just never made sense to me. So I don't participate. Has nothing to do with being Christian or not Christian.
Yeah.
It's about Christ, and it's not even about the gift. So I decided not to participate. My point is, to the 40 and 50-year-old, I'm like, what would happen if you and the family got on the same page and say, we're not doing Christmas gifts this year. Instead, we're going to take all that money and we're going to start our first investment account. Mm-hmm. What would happen if you told your family that you always give gifts to, like, not this year. We giving the gifts to us. Mm-hmm. We starting an investment account. And so that takes boldness. That takes bravery. It takes vision to also sit the family down and say, hey, we might have to cut back. I know we like our Cadillac Escalade. Why don't we just drop it down to a Dodge Durango? Why don't we drop it down to a Cherokee or drop it down to a minivan just for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? And most people won't make the sacrifice and scale back. But at that age, that sacrifice also typically involves other people, kids, spouse. So it's important to get them on the same page. But my mentor once said something to me in network marketing that always stuck with me. Even if the family's not on the same page, he says sometimes you got to make a decision for the family that they don't understand right now, but they'll appreciate later. And so I'm still at that age, if I'm really trying to put my family in a better position, whether they see it or not, I still need to make the hard choice as a man or the leader of my household and say, or even as a woman, and say, this is the direction I think we need to go. Yeah. And I'm going to, I know y'all don't agree right now, but just give me some grace, try and trust me, right? But I think we need to start investing or cutting back or doing this so that we can be in a better financial situation. That's what I would tell someone in 40s and 50.
Great word. Because again, I've said this before where I go, when you're 18 and you're risking everything, that's sometimes $10 in a sock drawer. When you're 50 years old and you're risking everything, it's involving other people. There's family involved. So that's kind of your point where you got to go back and have these conversations with family members about what you're going to do.
Yeah. And the key is to typically reduce your lifestyle and make some sacrifice so you're not risking everything. Yeah. I don't want people risking their home or everything. But if you say, hey, if we don't do Christmas gifts, I can come up with the $4,000. If we don't take the vacation mixed with Christmas gifts, when we use our tax return differently, that's the $4,000 the guy was talking about to start this 5 Year Millionaire program. That's just a small sacrifice. That's not risking everything. You know what I'm saying? So it's just a sacrifice for a season. Yeah. And most people won't make that sacrifice for a season. And that's what's disappointing to me.
Delayed gratification, right? It's something that most parents try to teach their kids in some way, whether that was just how you ate dessert. We're going to wait till after dinner to have dessert, but you're talking about the same thing with money. Well, Jason, this has been incredibly helpful. For me, the high point of this was when you explained the call options. Man, I get it now. I get it. But I would highly recommend our audience reach out to you or look into what you're doing. How would they get a hold of you, or how would they find what you're doing?
Yeah, the best place is thebrownreport.com. From there, they can find me on all the social platforms. But on YouTube, I'm The Brown Report. Instagram, I'm The Brown Report. Yeah. TikTok, I'm just The Brown Report. So thebrownreport.com. They can look at the book, everything there.
Yeah. And I think this is such an important conversation. And again, I started this way. I'm a person of faith. Most of our audience is people of faith. God, Jesus specifically in the Gospels, talks a lot about money and investing. In fact, he's got a whole parable, the parable of the talents. And the talents, that was a form of money 2,000 years ago. So it's not talking about my talent to play basketball. He was literally telling a parable or a story about how to leverage the money that you have and how to do that well. And one of the things he brings up is the evil servant. I put that in quotes, but in Jesus' parable, that's what he calls the servant who just went and buried it, didn't do anything with it. And it didn't grow, it didn't compound, but then the other ones that figured out how to leverage it, and that's what you're helping to teach us. And so that's where I would encourage our audience, go to Jason's website, look it up, figure out how you can start doing this.
Yeah, and to your point, I just want to add this. One of the things that felt so good, we used to be so embarrassed about what we could put in the plate because we only had like $1. And I never figured I would ball $1 up so that nobody could see the number. And I would kind of throw it in the plate and hope nobody saw it was only $1. I don't know. Just as a kid, I was embarrassed it was only $1. I remember cutting checks of, I don't want to say the amount, but I became that person that gets invited to the private dinners at church because of the checks that we cut. I was also able to name a space at the Mike Ilitch School of Business. So when they were building a new building for Wayne State University downtown, they were raising money and you could name a space. And I thought, how cool would that be to donate and name a space? So some of the most powerful things I've been able to do was give the money away to causes that I believe in. And I can't tell you how good it felt to write that check to the church and churches that I support or to the schools and the communities, because if my kids go into the Mike Ilitch School, they go on the second floor. It says, thanks to the generosity of the Brown Report. And like that plaque will be there for as long as the building is going to be there.
Yeah.
And so I like to say, donate or give something to a cause that'll outlive you. And that's the other benefit of making money. It's not just to buy things and live lavish, but you can really make an impact when you're gone that outlives you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well put, my friend. Well, this is kind of the fun part of the podcast. So we've listened to you for about an hour, and this is what we call the two truths and a lie. So our audience has been listening to you. I've been sitting here for an hour. This is a way for us to get to know you a little bit better. So you're going to give me 3 statements. 2 of them will be true. 1 will be a lie, and I have to try to guess the lie.
Okay. I'm a certified scuba diver.
Okay.
I've been taking salsa lessons for over a decade. And I got my 2nd tier license in marksman shooting.
Ooh, these are good. Now, I cheated a little bit because I know you're a certified scuba diver. I am too. So I know that one. So now I got a 50-50 chance. Man, I'm going to come back to the scuba diving for just a moment here. So you take salsa lessons, or you're a tier?
I've taken 10 years of salsa lessons.
Okay.
And I have my tier 2 marksman shooter's license.
Oh, man. I mean, this is a total guess. I have no idea. I could see you doing both of those, honestly. So I'm going to say you're tier 2 marksman.
No, I've taken salsa lessons for over 10 years.
A 50-50 chance. Maybe I shouldn't go into investing or the stock market. But so scuba dive, favorite dive you've done?
Yeah, Cozumel. That's where me and my buddy go. And the water's beautiful. It's clear. It's warm.
You go around the backside of the island where you got the drift? You
yes.
did the drift too?
So one time we did the drift where we just kind of stood there and it took us all the way down and we could just look. I could see how you could get swept in an undercurrent. It was super cool.
Yeah.
When you got an oxygen tank.
Audience, if you don't know what we're talking about, when you scuba dive and you're doing a drift dive, there's a current. So you go down to like 60 feet or whatever depth you're going to go. You get your buoyancy set, so you feel like you're floating in space, right? You're just effortless.
And it just takes
and then you're
by.
not even swimming or kicking. You're just going with the current. And so when we did that one in Cozumel, all of a sudden the dive masters tap in their tank. You know how they'll do that? Sometimes like ding, 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 ding. And then they point back and we turn around and look, and there's 5 sand sharks that are swimming. So we just turn around and kick against the current, and they swam right under. I could have reached down and touched them.
Really?
They're sand sharks, so the audience probably like, "Oh, you're so brave." You could pet them; they wouldn't do anything. But right underneath me, I could have pet them. It was so cool.
Yeah, it's a whole nother world underneath the water.
Yeah, you just saw me light up when I started talking about it. So we'll talk more when we shut the mics off here. But hey, Jason, so appreciate your wisdom, taking the time to come and talk to our audience. Appreciate what you do and the impact that you're having.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, man. Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Jason Brown as much as I did. One thing that really stood out to me is that financial independence isn't just about earning more money. It's about understanding the system, making intentional decisions with the resources you already have. Like we say on this podcast, the choices we make today shape the life we live tomorrow. Thanks for spending some time with us today, and we'll see you next time on No Gray Areas.